Every day, facilities across America send out thousands of shipments. We depend on safe and efficient transportation by air, land, and sea to get these goods to their destinations. Many of these materials require special attention. Some are fragile, others are bulky, some are hard to handle. Other shipments, however, need attention for a more important reason. These are the ones that pose health and safety risks. We're talking about hazardous materials. In the United States alone, there are over 800,000 shipments of hazardous materials each day. It is extremely important to handle hazardous materials safely. Not handling them properly can lead to serious incidents, such as chemical spills and fires, and even injury or death. To prevent these types of accidents, the U.S. Department of Transportation has developed a set of regulations addressing the handling and transporting of hazardous materials. These regulations, located in 49 CFR, Parts 100 through 185, are often referred to as the HMR, the Hazardous Materials Regulations. To keep them as comprehensive as possible, the HMR are revised frequently. The most current version can always be found on the Government Printing Office website. So if you work with hazardous materials, you need to know about these hazmat regulations. The Department of Transportation defines a hazardous material as a substance or material that the Secretary of Transportation has determined is capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, and property when transported in commerce. Each regulated material is listed in the Hazardous Materials Table in the HMR. This table lists the materials alphabetically by proper shipping name. It shows you where to find all of the information necessary for shipping each material, from proper labeling to proper packaging. The table is revised periodically, so make sure you're using the most up-to-date version available. The Department of Transportation's HMR affects all hazmat employers. These include companies with one or more employees who are involved in transporting hazardous materials or causing hazardous materials to be transported. The companies that manufacture, recondition, or test containers that are used in the transportation of hazardous materials are also part of this group. The hazardous materials regulations also affect all hazmat employees. Because the safe transportation of hazardous materials is so important, a hazmat employee is defined very broadly. It includes anyone who directly affects a material's transport. That means any employee who loads, unloads, or handles hazardous materials, as well as workers who prepare hazardous materials for transport, or who are responsible for assuring that safe handling procedures are followed. The workers who manufacture, recondition, or test containers and other packaging that is used in the transportation of hazardous materials are also covered. And of course, vehicle operators, such as truck drivers and train engineers who transport hazardous materials, are classified as hazmat employees as well. No matter what role you play in the transportation of hazardous materials, one important requirement of the HMR is that you receive training on how to work with these substances safely. The Department of Transportation has defined 5 different types of training for hazmat employees. This training is designed to increase each employee's awareness of the potential dangers of transporting and handling hazardous materials, demonstrate how to work with these materials safely, and enhance the security measures that are taken for hazardous materials during transport. The first type of training that the HMR requires is General Awareness Training, the topic of this program. This training focuses on helping employees recognize hazardous materials. The second type of training that's needed under the HMR is Function-Specific Training. This addresses how hazardous materials affect each worker's specific job. For instance, people in a shipping department need to know how to pack hazardous materials for transport, so that employees who make deliveries or unpack the materials for storage will be safe. The third type of training required by the HMR is safety training. It covers emergency response information, measures that can be taken to protect employees from hazardous materials, and methods and procedures that can be used to help avoid accidents. Because of the threat that terrorists could use hazardous materials as weapons of mass destruction, the DOT has also created two types of security-related training. All hazmat employees must undergo security awareness training, which covers the security risks associated with hazardous materials, procedures to enhance the security of hazardous materials during transport, and the ability to recognize and respond to possible security threats. In-depth security training must be given to all hazmat employees working for companies that are required by the DOT to maintain a security plan. This includes companies that transport any quantity of dangerous materials, such as radioactive chemicals, certain types of explosives, and some substances that are defined as poisonous by inhalation. Companies that deal with shipments of hazardous materials which are large enough to require placarding under DOT regulations also fall into this group. In-depth security training must cover the company's security objectives, specific security procedures, employee responsibilities, actions to take in the event of a security breach, and how the company has its security operations organized. When we think about hazardous materials, one of the things we need to remember is that we can encounter them in a number of places. If you work for a company that sells hazardous materials, you can find them out on a delivery truck, in large storage tanks, or in warehouses. If your facility uses hazardous materials, you can find them on trucks arriving at the loading dock, and of course in various locations where manufacturing, maintenance, or research is being performed. If your company is involved in transportation, you may encounter hazardous materials on trucks, railroad cars, ships, even in pipelines. No matter what your job description is, warning indicators such as labels are one of the best ways to determine whether or not the materials you're handling are hazardous. The Department of Transportation divides hazardous materials into 9 different hazard classes. Each class has its own specific label. These labels are used on boxes and other shipping containers to identify both the primary and secondary hazards of the material inside. Class 1 is made up of explosives. Class 2 consists of all gases, that is, any materials that are gaseous at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius, or less at standard sea level, whether they're flammable, non-flammable, toxic, or inert. Class 3 is comprised of flammable liquids, specifically those with flash points below 141 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius. Class 4 is made up of flammable solids. Class 5 consists of oxidizers and organic peroxides. Class 6 includes all poisonous substances. Class 7 encompasses all radioactive materials. Class 8 contains corrosives. Class 9, called miscellaneous hazardous materials, includes any hazardous substance that doesn't clearly fit into one of the previous 8 categories. Hazard class labels are meant to attract attention. They are diamond-shaped and must measure at least 100 millimeters, that's 3.9 inches on each side. Each hazard class has a unique symbol, which must appear in the top corner of the diamond. Labels must also be a specific color and have the hazard class number at the bottom of the diamond. You may also see placards with these same symbols on things such as trucks and rail cars that are carrying large quantities of hazardous materials. Because placards are meant to be seen when they are in motion, they are bigger than labels. Placards must measure at least 250 millimeters, that's 9.84 inches on each side. In addition, placards must only show information that describes the shipment. messages like "Drive safely" and "Have a nice day" are no longer allowed to appear on placards or in placard holders. Specific hazard-related information, such as additional handling precautions and prohibitions, can sometimes also be found in other markings on the outside of hazardous materials packages and containers. Other types of markings are important too. Labels such as "Cargo Aircraft Only" or "This and Up" serve notice that a specific type of handling is required. It's important to remember that with OSHA's adoption of the GHS labeling system in 2012, the Hazard Communication Standard also uses hazard labels whose pictograms can often look much like those on DOT labels. The OSHA labels indicate both physical and health hazards, but in some cases use the same symbols as the DOT labels. For the next couple of years, both labels can appear on cartons and other shipping containers. In 2016, the DOT is scheduled to switch to GHS labels as well. So make sure that you take note of all of the labels and markings on a container, and take the precautions that they indicate are necessary. The shipping papers that accompany hazardous materials are another good source of hazard information. They can be supplied in a number of ways, including by mail, phone, fax, or electronically. The most important thing that shipping papers are required to list is the material's basic description. The information must be listed in the following order: the material's identification number, its proper shipping name, the material's hazard class or division number, and its packing group, which indicates the degree of danger associated with the material. This information must be shown in sequence, with no additional information interspersed. A 24-hour emergency response phone number that can be used to get additional information in the event of an incident must also be listed. The last section of the shipping papers is a declaration that the shipment is safe and that it has been packed according to the rules in the HMR. This must be signed by the provider of the hazardous material. Remember, packages cannot be released for shipment unless they are in full compliance with all of the requirements in the regulations. One reason that the Department of Transportation is so rigorous about the information that must appear on the shipping papers is that it may be needed at a later date to track the shipment. Because of this, the DOT requires each company that offers hazardous materials for shipment to maintain a paper or electronic copy of this information for a minimum of 2 years after the shipment has been accepted by the initial carrier. If the material in question is considered to be a hazardous waste, the shipping papers must be kept for a period of 3 years. Another resource for important information about hazardous materials is the DOT's Emergency Response Guidebook. It provides first responders with easy-to-use instructions for handling emergencies involving hazardous materials. Since many materials have similar hazards, the book has divided initial emergency response actions into over 60 guides. To determine which action should be taken in the event of a hazmat incident, responders can simply look up the material that is involved, and the guidebook will point you to the appropriate guide number. Remember, the guidebook is updated frequently, just like the hazardous materials regulations. So be aware of recent revisions, and if you're involved in a response situation, make sure that you're using the most up-to-date version available. In addition to ensuring that everyone who works with hazardous materials is appropriately trained, one of the objectives of the HMR is to make sure employees know how to correctly pack hazardous materials. This means packaging must meet or exceed the international performance-oriented packaging requirements established by the United Nations. Packages meeting these standards carry the UN symbol, as well as codes that provide information about the type, material, and construction of the container. To be sure that the containers you are using are safe, you can consult the Hazardous Materials Table. If you have any other questions, the DOT's packaging standards can be found in Section 178.600 of the regulations. If you are involved with loading packages, you are one of the last lines of defense for ensuring that materials are packed according to DOT requirements. You also need to make sure that each package is undamaged. If there's a problem, you shouldn't load it. Once everything is safely packed up, double-check that each package has been labeled and marked according to the HMR, and confirm that the shipping papers are ready to go with the shipment. As you get ready to load the shipment, remember that some types of materials can be dangerous if they are shipped or stored together. In the event of an accident, these materials could react violently with each other. To help guard against this problem, the DOT has developed tables in the HMR that dictate which hazardous materials must be segregated from one another. If you are responsible for shipping hazardous materials, you need to make sure that all delivery vans, trailers, tankers, and other transport vehicles are properly placarded. Placards must be displayed on each end and each side of vehicles and freight containers. Placarding specifications can be found in the two placarding tables in Section 172.504 of the HMR. The tables describe what placards are required for a material, depending on how dangerous it is and how much of it is being shipped. All carriers must keep a ready supply of extra placards and labels on hand at terminals or similar locations in case the originals are lost or damaged. Of course, before a shipment can leave a facility, someone must confirm that the trailer, tanker, ship, or other vehicle transporting it is in good running condition. Any problems, they should be reported to a supervisor. In addition, make sure that appropriate security measures, like sealing the shipment and locking the vehicle's doors, have been taken. Whenever hazardous materials are on the move, it's important that their shipping papers are readily available, no matter how the materials are being transported. In addition to basic information about the materials that are being shipped, these papers list actions that should be taken in case of an accident or other emergency. For motor vehicles, the papers are usually kept inside a pouch on the driver's door. They can also be kept in other places in the cab, as long as they are within arm's reach of the driver and won't be confused with other documents. Once a shipment arrives at a facility, there are several things that need to be checked out before it's unloaded. First, you should make sure the shipping papers are in order. Then, check the papers and any container labels for special handling instructions, such as whether personal protective equipment should be used when unloading the materials. If you're involved in receiving or storing hazardous materials, remember not to accept damaged packages. If you find one already on the shelf, notify your supervisor. Many materials require specially controlled storage areas. Flammables and combustibles, for instance, should be kept away from heat and other potential sources of ignition. And don't forget to keep materials that need to be segregated away from each other. You can help avoid incidents when you are handling and transporting hazardous materials by knowing how to work with them and making sure that they are secured properly. Let's review. Know your role in dealing with hazardous materials and be on the lookout for them as you go about your work. Be familiar with the HMR and all it tells you so that you can spot potential problems. Know how to use the hazardous materials table and other references to get answers to your questions. Make sure that packages, labels, placards, and shipping papers meet compliance requirements. Remember, the hazardous materials regulations are there to protect us all. Following the HMR will make handling and transporting hazardous materials safe for everyone.